Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, JCB hat getting an outing today. Long while since I've worn this one. I dug it out of a box yesterday. Speaking of yesterday, good morning, everyone, by the way. Good morning to we got in the chat so far. Andy Dalvell's here. Mark Whiting is here. Mark Whiting and Gary Muirhead as well. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Nick Brooks Group over on Instagram as well. D Foxwell over on Instagram. There's somebody that goes by the name of Demolition, but there's also lots of underscores as well. But good morning to you as well. Good morning, one and all. Quite a day yesterday. Quite a day. Over on our Substack, Demolition Insider, we generally pick up one or two new subscribers a week. We picked up 23 yesterday. 4 of them paying for the privilege. Wish I knew why. I don't know whether I've just been discovered or recommended or not a bleeding clue what's going on, but suddenly an influx of subscribers. They are all welcome. Hopefully they'll pop over here and join in the fun and games. Speaking of fun and games, because I've got the guy blocked, I didn't realise that he had re-emerged. Those of you that have been on the show for any length of time will know that some years ago, I had, for a period of a good 2 years, I had an online stalker, a guy by the name of Ian Simpson. I ended up having to take out an injunction against him. The police called round to see him initially. He set his dog on and put 2 policemen in the hospital. But we ultimately ended up in court, and I got a 2-year restraining order. And it was a good 5 years after that restraining order actually expired before he actually got in contact again and basically suggested let bygones be bygones. So the one remaining social media platform where he could find me, I blocked him on there as well. Well, it turns out he's back. Not for me, probably a matter of time because that is his way. Nigel Williams alerted me to this yesterday. There's a company offering dozer training. Listen, anyone that's offering dozer training is fine by me. But along comes our friendly neighbourhood stalker, to tell them that they're doing it all wrong, that he's the greatest operator since sliced bread, and so on down the line. If they're listening, I can't remember the name of the company, but Nigel, I would strongly recommend that you tell those people offering the dozer training to block him as quickly as they possibly can, because he is bad news. Very quickly recap the story of how it came to be with me. And this is the reason our demolitionnews.com website no longer has the comments enabled. So this must be probably 10 years ago, I guess. I can't remember the dates actually, but maybe 10 years ago. I got a message from somebody that I'd worked with rather in a previous life, to say, look, this guy is commenting on your stuff. Keep an eye on him. We've had to block him. And I looked and I thought, wow, he's quite opinionated, but he's not a problem. Well, lo and behold, about 3 weeks later, he let all hell break loose. So I took him to one side, sent him an email, said, look, you can't be doing this. I'm not going to tolerate it. One strike and you're out. Good as gold for another couple of weeks, and then he let rip. So I blocked him, switched off the comments. He then turned on me. He threatened to get me at a hillhead that was coming up. He then went after my advertisers. He went after me on every single social media platform he could. Absolute bloody nightmare. As I say, I ended up having to take out an injunction against him. Good morning to Garvin over on Mostly Diggers as well. Jim Turner has just arrived. And I know Jim's been involved in the conversation over there as well. He says, morning, peeps. It's Dots. Is it Dots that's doing the dozer training? Could well be. I wish I could remember. I should have taken a note of it. But if it is them, more power to you, chaps and chapesses, but don't have anything to do with the guy. He is bad news. Now, speaking of bad news, I'd like to get your opinion on something. Given we haven't got the entire core of our normal audience here, but I'll mention it a couple of times. I'm very seriously considering doing an after dark show in the next couple of weeks on the subject of death. Oh, that sounds like fun. I hear you all cry. I feel like I have been pussyfooting around the subject for a bit too long. We've talked about suicide. We've talked about Didcot, we've talked about Redcar, and incidentally, just to let you know, the two guys that died at Redcar are going to get a monument at the Redcar site, which is good news. Shouldn't have ever happened, shouldn't need a memorial, but you know the very fact that they've, I know Anne and Co have been fighting for that. They've got that coming up, so that you know, in the grand scheme of things, that's good news. But one of the things that we've never addressed head on is death in death in service within demolition and construction, and also accidents and the like. You know, we mentioned the occasional accident, we mentioned the occasional death, but as part of that, I was thinking about this last night, and I thought, well, I'll have a very quick search. And I went to Construction Inquirer and typed in first the word death, and then typed in the word fatality. Dozens and dozens and dozens. Now, some of those are quite you know, they're quite outdated, because the reason that a fatality or a death was mentioned was the fact that it was the result of a prosecution of a death that had happened 5, 6, 7 years ago. But deaths in service nonetheless. I then went over to Construction Index and did exactly the same thing. Dozens and dozens and dozens. Today's question of the day is going to be geared around that, and I would like your feedback. I would like your feedback on whether whether there's an appetite for an evening show dedicated to the subject of death. I can't pussyfoot. I can't dress it up. I can't put pretty bows on it. Death. It happens. Last year, I think we lost about 50 people in service. I think, oh no, the year before it was about 50. I think we're down to about 35 now. But again, it's still roughly one per working week. Not good enough. And one of my concerns with all of this is how quickly we move on. You know, when you look at, and this is not an accusation against Construction Inquirer. I'm a huge fan of what they do, but Construction Inquirer will mention the fact that somebody was killed today, and then tomorrow it will be a different set of news. And that death, despite the impact on the people that were working with him, and the family, obviously, and his friends and loved ones, that won't be mentioned again in all likelihood until there is a prosecution and some kind of explanation. Somebody has died, and we all just move on with our lives. Could you tune into an evening show on the subject of death? I'm going to go back to, let's have a look. Jim Turner says, "What's this loon's name? It will be someone I've had to. It may well be someone I've had to block. It's a guy called Ian Simpson. You can spot him a mile off. Um, it's only a matter of time before he tells you that he is the world's greatest operator, and that everybody else, every single person in the entire world, is doing it wrong. Everybody. Keep an eye out, because, as I say, bad news. And apparently it is Chris and Katie Barker that are doing the dozer training. Chris and Katie Barker, I don't suppose for one moment you're watching this, but if you are, got a bit of free advertising just to counterbalance the pillock that's giving you a hard time. Want a bit of free advertising? Get in touch. I'll make it happen. And screw him. Ken Hatcher is here. Sort of. He's here with his weather report, but he's also said, "I'm watching yesterday's show." But I don't blame you, Ken. It was a good one. Was it? I can't remember. They all blur after a while. Peter McKenna is here. Good morning to the pigsty. How are we all? Good morning to you. Oh, I'm fine. Listen, after yesterday, as I say, it's not the money. I mean, we're not talking about a huge amount of income, but to suddenly have an influx of subscribers, free or paid, it's a big deal. It's like you've been recognised, and I quite like that. As I say, there was a bit of me that thought, I wonder if it's a particular story that's triggered that. I wonder if there's a particular thing that I've done that's triggered it. Doesn't appear to be. It just seems to be across the board. Our friend Mick is here. Good morning, Mick. I'll ask Mick, I'll ask Peter, I'll ask Ken, Jim, Gary, Dan, if he's here as well. Would you tune into an evening show on the subject of death? As I say, not a cheery subject, but I do wonder if you would tune into that. If you would, I'll do it. Peter says 4.2 HGV drivers die each week at work. 9 out of 10, there isn't an inquiry into their death. We sounds like we could do that as a double header, Peter. Our friend Stefan is here all the way from the Netherlands. I'm assuming you are in the Netherlands at the moment. Mick says nothing wrong with pigsties. I'll have you know. Well, I'm bearing in mind he is currently renovating one. He would know. Peter apparently would tune in. Ken wouldn't tune in because he wouldn't sleep. Listen, I've even thought, if I do go ahead, I'm even going to have like a trigger warning across the bottom of the screen, because I don't know why we don't talk about it more. We're quite happy to talk about, the risk of asbestos. We're quite happy to talk about machines that turn over. We're quite happy to talk, well, not happy, but we often talk about suicides and mental health and all that. And yet we're not actually talking about the large black elephant in the room of people actually dying in the line of duty in demolition and construction, which happens. If it happens once in a year, it's happened too often. Stefan says he would tune in. Good, glad to hear it. Thank you very much indeed. Jim Turner says he's just messaged Chris about your offer. Thank you very much indeed, Jim. Listen, it's a minor token. It doesn't cost me a dime, but if we can help to promote somebody doing a bit of good and to counter a pillock in our midst, why would we not? Why would we not? Gary Muirhead says, question of the day. Yes, it's a subject we seem to pussyfoot around, but it's something that's going to happen to us one day. If there's a way we could delay that date, then it's a good thing. Yeah, yeah. And I also wonder. It is our question of the day. I'll get onto it in just a moment. But I also wonder about what the reaction is on a site where there is a fatality. I can't remember whose site it was, but it was reported yesterday that there was a show that was closed. A site that was closed because somebody had been killed on a site yesterday. I think they're right in closing the site, but obviously for investigation purposes as well. And I would like to think that, the guys that were working around the person that was killed need a bit of time to, recoup and everything else. How quickly do you go back? Are you offered counselling? Do you talk about it? Is it glossed over? Do we move on? And the other thing that struck me, bearing in mind, we're talking about potentially major companies here. When their AGM rolls around and, they have their shareholders meeting and they're all counting their dividends and the increase in the share price and the project pipeline that they've got, is anybody actually mentioning those people that lost their lives on their sites? Would they even know their names? Would they know the circumstances? Would they even know the sites upon which they died? Just think about that, would you? Mick says, not sure about that. Lost 9 of my mates in the army, not to mention the old characters I met over the years and the fact that I feel like I'm in God's waiting room at 74. Listen, I realise it will not be for everyone. But I feel like it's one of those subject areas where you kind of need to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not accepting this. I'm not accepting this. When you think about, and I will do the research properly, but when you think about the billions that the UK demolition and construction industry generates, when you think about its contribution to GDP, when you think about the fact that it employs 3.1 million people, I think rightly so. I think a lot of us are very proud to be a part. In my case, a distant part, but we're quite proud of our part in that grand scheme of things. Can you still take pride when people are dying through accidents and negligence and Lord alone knows what else? Can you actually take pride in an industry where death is still, I think it's exaggerating to say it's part and parcel, but it certainly isn't unusual, which is going to, that will inform our question of the day, which I'll come to in a second. Gary Muirhead says, I've lost too many good friends who have taken their own lives. I wish I could have helped. You and me both, my friend. You and me both. Jim, going back to our Dozer training friends, says they're proper sound people and a company as well. Good. And Andy Thornton. Andy, I have responded to your email at long last. Sorry, a bit late. Not a problem at all. We haven't even started the show yet. 16 minutes in, but I would like to get your take. And listen, it might be an area where we may even have a co-host on. Should we go ahead with our show, which I'm the working title of it is "Let's Talk About Death." Like the Salt and Pepper song. Let's talk about sex, but rather more serious. If that's something you could get behind, please let me know here or offline. I'm inclined to do it, even though it will be deeply unpopular and I may end up talking to myself, but I may do it anyway. Anyway, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day. Let me get Andy out the way first. Let's get the show on the road. I will tell you all about the show in just a moment, but I do need to welcome the mighty Chris Ford, who says, "Morning, grunts. Do we talk the talk and walk the walk?" Yeah, to a degree, to a degree. And Dan Cullen, with the strangest spelling of morning I've ever seen, is in our midst. Molmin. Maybe it's Gaelic. Maybe it's Gaelic. I'm not an expert. Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 20th of August. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, Scotty, new starships. Scotty's, no scrapers. Yeah. Is it a scraper? Is it a compactor? Actually, it's both. All aboard with Takeuchi, and we're taking a very detailed walk around the very latest Gehl skid steer loader. Plus, in my morning monologue today, designed by committee, the inefficiencies baked into demolition and construction. That's what's coming up. I do need to address, though, the question of the day, which I will remind you of right now. Yeah, serious question just for once. Do you personally know anyone that has been killed or seriously injured on a demolition or construction site? You've all been around the block for a fair bit, most of you anyway. Um, as I said at the top of the show, I'm very seriously considering hosting an after dark show on the subject of site fatalities and serious accidents. I've got to be honest, I don't even know why it hasn't occurred to me before. It's got to be the most serious issue facing the demolition and construction sector. I think you can argue about some of the suicides that are being linked to demolition and construction. They may have taken place on site, or they may have involved people working within the industry. Does that necessarily mean it was as a result of being within the industry? Hard to say. But if somebody is killed or seriously injured or maimed on a construction or a demolition site, it is quite clearly linked to the industry. Now, I personally don't know anyone that's been killed on site, but I do know plenty of people that have been touched by site fatalities. Obviously, I've spoken to the families of several of the Didcot 4, and I've also spoken at length to Anne Mackay, whose husband was killed up at Redcar. And I've also met plenty of people that have been injured in the line of work as well. In fact, just a weird coincidence, in 2 days' time, it will be 9 years since I headed a brick. Yeah, on a demolition site. I will tell you more about that on Friday because it is the 9th anniversary. Not that it's a big deal, I'm still here. You know, the boat race didn't look that great before. It hasn't really changed, to be honest, but yeah, I'll tell you more about that. Now, going back to the chat, Gary Muirhead started on a new site today and was handed the keys to a brand new Hitachi 350 35 tonner. Not a bad morning. Not a bad morning. Now, there has been some dissension in the ranks about Hitachis. Gary, what do you make of it so far? I realise it's only 10:21. You haven't had a huge amount of time to play with it. Are you with me, who think Hitachi pretty bloody good, or are you with Dan, who thinks Hitachi not so great? Love to get in first impressions. First impressions. Dan is only listening today because he is on drainage, and no, don't know anyone that's been killed, which is good. Yeah, listen, yeah, I would like to think that nobody's been touched by that, but my guess is some of you may well have done. It is time to press on. I'm going to play the news thing in a moment, and then we're talking scrapers. Yeah, we don't feature scrapers anywhere near often enough on this show, but I thought it was time to put that right. So we're off to meet Scotty's over in America, who are running Catex very well too. Have a look at this.
Hi, my name is Chris Higgins, Vice President of Scotty's Contracting. This project we call Bluegrass Farms. This is a industrial roadway that will be used for industrial and commercial development right here on the outskirts of Bowling Green. So we're running the 37-yard K-Tech pans. We're pulling those with A45G tractors on this, some A40s as well. We have in total on other projects, in combination with this one, we run a dozen of K-Tech pans and occasionally run up to 15 to 20. We had a need to move some heavy yardage on projects, and I had seen these. First had seen one in Las Vegas, and it piqued my interest and wanted to try them out. And then I figured out who the dealer was in the area and demoed two on a project, and we never looked back. The K-Techs are a great tool for us. They give us the capability to move a lot of yardage quick. So we're in an area that has a dirt and rock mix, but the K-Techs allow us to get the dirt out of the way in a very quick, efficient manner like we didn't have before. You know, in just a handful of years, K-Tech has become a brand that I was only vaguely aware of to an integral part of our workflow we use every day on projects to get our work done. We purchase a lot of equipment at Scotty's. We make decisions based on support and the ability to support the product. Everything is nice when it's new. What we need to know is if someone can keep that piece operational for us. I can't say enough good things about the support and fantastic folks at K-Tech and what they've done for us to help make us successful on our projects. I would recommend them to anyone looking to go into the scraper market. So the Bowling Green area is very interesting. We have a unique geology. It's formed by karst topography. So what that means is we have a heavily weathered limestone subsurface. So we are next to Mammoth Cave, one of the largest cave systems in the world, and our surface water is readily interchanged with the groundwater. What that means for us is we never know quite when we're going to encounter rock in this area. But for removing the soil, the K-Techs are what we use, and then we move those out and use other equipment to do the rock excavation. You know, with a dozer, a grader, an excavator, we oftentimes see it takes several years for someone to gain the experience to become highly efficient on that piece of equipment. But in regards to the K-Tech scraper pulled by the ADT dump trucks, with the methods we use for training, we are seeing folks get to be functional and efficient inside that role in a matter of a few weeks, sometimes a few months, but certainly a lot shorter learning curve than we typically see with other pieces of equipment. So Scotty's Contracting is the largest heavy civil contractor in the region. Along with that comes the ability to work on fantastic projects like this, as well as with some of the best equipment in the market. So for someone who's trying to come into the industry, I'm proud to say we have fantastic opportunities because we've been growing and we're still growing. That gives a lot of upward mobility for operators to come on board, learn the industry and train and get opportunities to work on projects like this.
Yeah, loving that, loving that. Gary Muirhead says, going back to his Hitachi, he's only on crossfire until the new Volvo EC50. EC50, or is that an EC500? Is it an EC450? EC50 sounds quite small. Let me know. Mick says he's known a couple of fatalities over the length of his career, but I'm too vocal regarding Didcot. And this is Nick, I know exactly what you're saying here. The memory never fades. He says, "I no longer want to talk about it." We are a mere matter of months now away from the 10th anniversary of Didcot. And yeah, listen, you all know that come the anniversary, I will be talking about it again. So reluctant to do so. So reluctant to do so. I don't actually believe I have much in the way of choice because nobody else is talking about it. And that's a gap that that's a mantle we've taken on. But yeah, I'm at the point now where I really wish it would be resolved so we could all move on. I take your point entirely on that. Dan says, on a job where a man was killed, first quitch came out, operator didn't put the pin in, and the bucket came off. And on the same bit here, we've got Chris Ford. Unfortunately, yes, he has seen a fatality or been involved in not involved, but been touched by a fatality. Tony was a machine driver, low loader driver. He was supervising the unloading of a 360 off a low loader when a 45-gallon drum of diesel fell out of the bucket and hit him. Yeah. In an instant. Sorry, EC 550 tonner. We've got over 1 million tons of rock to move on this site. Yeah, that would take a 500 quite easily. Do a bit of digging, Mark. I'm planning to do a bit of digging. I just listen. I think it's a subject that's worthy of consideration. What are we back? Yeah, we've got a weird one for you next. I said in the run up to it, is it a compactor or is it a crusher? It's kind of both. Back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, I've already fired it up. So this is how you deal with rock when you want to compact and build a road. Not the way you might think.
We're in Winchester, Virginia. It's about 360,000 yards of dirt we're moving in rock. About 300 houses is what we're putting in this, 300 units.
We have just ran into so much rock on this job. It wasn't meeting compaction due to the mass quantity of rock, and it was just beating up the equipment. So we needed something definitely a little quicker than a crusher.
The HC 250i CVC is a one-of-a-kind vibratory roller with crushing capabilities. I'm not aware of another machine in the market that can do what it does. It works off of its sheer power and weight and the frequency at which it vibrates to crush the rock.
It weighs just under 60,000 pounds. A typical 84-inch wide soil compactor would weigh about 25,000 pounds. So it's about double the weight. And it also generates just under 80,000 pounds of centrifugal force in the drum. And then you concentrate that on these point loads, these teeth, which gives you tremendous point loading, which gives us the ability to pulverize these rocks.
I've honestly never even seen a roller that crushes rock. When this thing first came here, I was in full doubt that it would not break up this rock. I mean, this is a rock with limestone and just blue rock, just all dye rock. There's no real soft rock on this job.
We put one on this site and it seemed like everybody was a little hesitant and they were kind of looking at me like, what are you doing? And within a week, they're like, this thing's great. It's breaking up the rock. It's doing a great job.
Dave and I went to Germany for Tech Days back in April. We were walking around, Dave kind of stopped and looked and he seen the Hamm roller sitting there and he's like, what's that? And I said, well, that's a vibratory crushing roller. I was surprised by it because, we run a lot of quad compactors and rollers and they get busted up when you run it on this rock. And it just seemed like it might be a optimal machine for us. So I asked a couple questions and next thing you know, I got one sitting here.
It was just a complete accident that David happened to see this roller at Technology Days, and all of a sudden the light went on. So it was really just kind of a match made in heaven.
The operator experience is most definitely comfortable. The cab absorbs really no shock whatsoever as far as when the drum hits. You really don't feel it. The articulation, how it articulates 3 different ways, that really helps absorb the shock. You would think it'd be the roughest machine in the world to run, but when you run that and you feel how it doesn't even really get any backlash from the drum, it's pretty mesmerizing, honestly. Even as far as compaction goes, it compacts just as good as it breaks rock. I was pretty impressed. I was very impressed.
Everything we've thrown at it so far, this HOM roller has crushed it. I mean, it's just done an amazing job for us, actually. It helps us not have to worry about sizing our rock so small. We can put it in a little bit larger size and run it over, and we get great compaction out of it. This roller is going to stay until the job is done. It's the only piece of equipment I think that can handle the job.
What do you make of that? Looked quite slow to me. Then again, what's the alternative? Dig it all out, put it through a screener, put the rock through a crusher. Is that any faster? It'd be interesting to get your take on that. Peter McKenna says, after each accident, the coroner will produce a prevention of future deaths, a PFD report, working database. These are recommended to prevent future accidents. Are those circulated? Are those circulated? You know, through, construction channels, demolition channels? Does everyone get access to those? Be interested to know. Andy Thornton, we've mentioned mental health. It's time to mention it again. Only 6 years ago, around 60% of construction professionals worked without mental health policies. Things are changing, but it's taking too long and requires a review. Yeah, yes, it does. And while we're about it, why don't we actually, mend our ways a little bit, as I was talking about yesterday, and actually do things that cause a bit less mental stress? And then maybe we won't need to fix quite so many problems with mental health. Maybe that would be an idea. Even with mental health policies in companies, they still end up as box-ticking exercises. It needs mandatory regulations to provide mental health support at work for every employee, temporary or full-time, says Peter, and Andy Thornton agrees with him. All of these things, though, and I realise this is a weird analogy to draw, but all of these things are like all these systems that we have in place to recover stolen machinery. It's like we've accepted the fact that machines will be stolen. So we have these micro dots and trackers and Christ knows what else to get them, hopefully get them back after they've been stolen. We have basically, in terms of equipment theft, we have admitted defeat. We cannot prevent things from being stolen. Therefore, we need to pay extra money in order to try to get our machine back. Mental health, in my opinion, and listen, it is only my opinion, is exactly the same. Rather than actually addressing the problem, we are devising one sticking plaster after another. Mental health awareness campaigns, mental health first aiders, all this stuff. What about actually addressing the things that are causing the mental health problems in the first place? Prevention better than cure? I didn't invent the expression. Seems entirely appropriate here. Peter says, coroner's prevention of future deaths reports are essentially society's red flag moments. A coroner has looked at a fatality, decided it could happen again. Again, though, what happens to that? I know there was I can't actually remember what it was for. The HSE actually issued a bit of guidance on excavators the other day. I can't remember what it was about. I kind of set it to one side and never got around to actually reading it. But if there is I don't know, let's say a telehandler tips over and kills somebody. Let's say, like going back to Chris Ford's example, a drum of diesel has escaped and crushed somebody and they've died, and there is a report on that. What happens? Is that report then disseminated to everybody in the industry to say, if you are carrying diesel in a drum on a low loader, you need to be aware of these things? Or is it just we've reported on that, that's it, move on? I'd like to know if anyone's ever seen one of these PFD things in the wild. Love to hear about it. Formally warned that action needs to be taken. The problem is, as we've seen, these reports often sit on the judiciary website with little follow through. Yet for us, they're gold dust. Precisely that. There has been, I think, both Richard Dolman at AR Demolition and Adrian McLean at Armac have both tried their level best to circulate, even including their own near misses and accidents and that kind of thing. They've been very open about things that have happened in the hope that they can prevent another one on another site. That should be industry wide. And going back to Peter's point there about sitting on the judiciary, I'll go back to Didcot. It is 9.5 years, more than 9.5 years now. and we still don't know. 9.5 years. And as I say, every single time I mention it, there could be something within the findings of that Didcot investigation that could well have saved somebody else's life, but it's locked up. Mick says, any data on the time to run over, say, 100 meter square of rock and what size it would handle? No. I'll drop a line to Ham, see if they can come up with something like that. So look, Peter says they are independent, so can't be dismissed as drivers just complaining. They show clear systemic risk, rather. Example, medical checks, fatigue, loading yard procedures, site safety. They carry the legal weight of a coroner's office and highlight where government or industry failed to act. See, I am of the belief, and I know this doesn't sit well with health and safety practitioners. I am one of those people that is of the belief that accidents will happen. You will never, ever, ever, ever eliminate all accidents because of the variables, because of humans, and a lapse of concentration. I don't know, a piece of timber in the wrong place, a wet staircase. Accidents will happen. But there are things that happen within our industry that happen repeatedly. Falls from height, being crushed by equipment, slips, trips, falls. We know what they are. Asbestos. We know what they are. Surely that last part of Peter's thing there, surely we are now at the point where we can point at all of those things and say, this is not just an accident. This is an industry that has continually failed to act. Shoot me down if you will. Mick says, anyone with any sense will not have a loaded bucket when off or on a loading machine. Fair comment. Fair comment. If anyone's got any points on that, I'd love to hear from you. We're going to be back in just a moment. Yeah, we're off to Florida. Ken, we're off to Florida. Florida, I say. I know you're a fan. Yeah, I'll dedicate this one to you. Back after.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
We have apparently lost contact with Instagram. I would apologize to them, but I'm no longer speaking to them. I don't know what's going wrong there. Nothing, all beyond my control. Nothing I did, I don't think. Peter says, I'm digging into HGV drivers' deaths and how they could have been possibly been prevented. Hence, knowing the above. Yeah. In your experience, Peter, and he's right. He says this could open a can of worms. In your experience, and I know you've only just started on this, but here's the thing. When you are looking into those HGV driver deaths, how they could have been prevented, it strikes me that each death and each serious accident is a standalone thing. And I apologize. In fact, I won't even use the names of companies. I'll make them up. So Fred Blogg's Contractors over here has a site dumper that tips over and kills someone. Bob Schnurk over here, he runs a demolition fleet. He's got a telescopic handler that turned over and that's killed someone. But those two things have happened over here and over here. Is there at any point somebody, aside from the HSE, and to a degree, I don't even believe they do this, that is taking all of that data and saying, we've clearly got an issue here. We've got an issue with site dumpers, we've got an issue with telehandlers, we've got an issue with excavators, we've got an issue with unloading and offloading. And is anyone doing that? And Peter, if you've uncovered any of that in the HGV side of things, and there is a positive to be learned from it, let us know. We all understand that the contributing factors are work pressures, stigma, silence, lack of support. We need to understand that responsibility, the ability to respond, responsibility as such. Yeah, absolutely. And of all of those, stigma, I think that's something we need to address ourselves. Lack of support, I think that is something that industry needs to work on. But work pressures, financial pressures, employment pressures. Do you know where your next job's coming from? Do you know where your next pay packet is coming from? Even if you are owed money, are you going to get it? I know of at least one company director in the last couple of weeks that has taken his own life. Was that related to a non-payment? Possibly. I don't know. We haven't found the full details there, but it wouldn't be the first time. That's the bit that's not being addressed. And as I say, I don't want to accuse the industry of just sticking plasters, but I do think there's a lot of that going on. Rather than taking that step back and thinking, okay, how can we alleviate those work pressures, i.e., not every job up against the clock, not every single employee under the cosh all the live long day, not working away from home for prolonged periods, not being away from your support network, not having to worry about your next paycheck. Why are we not just addressing that first and foremost, and then seeing exactly what mental health problems we've got left afterwards? Andy goes on. It has to start with taking responsibility for those around us who may not have the ability or headspace to respond themselves. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Gary says, is the HSE fit for purpose if so many deaths are happening on site, or does it require a massive overhaul? Listen, name a body within demolition construction that doesn't require an overhaul. NFDC, CPA, CITB, CSCS, NPAWS, HSE, Environment Agency, every single one of them could do with a good kick up the arse. Apparently, and I haven't checked this morning because, frankly, I'm a bit bored now. But one of his parting shots before the asbestos industry whistleblower did a disappearing act for the second time in a couple of weeks was he threw a grenade and accused the HSE of being on the take. There is nothing. He presented no evidence to suggest that was the case, none whatsoever. But he said it, and he's now vanished. So I can't even check with him what exactly he means. Is that happening? Are the HSE looking the other way on some things? Why has it taken Thames Valley Police and the HSE 9.5 years to produce no findings on Didcot? Nearly 6 years to present no findings on Redcar, and so on? No, there isn't, until a whistleblower stands up to be counted and then does a disappearing act, so you can't actually check. Dan says, the problem, like I see sometimes, operators not having situational awareness, plus stress and bullying to get the job done. Yeah, now, it's the term bullying is something that Andy mentioned in an email to me yesterday, or the day before, can't remember. Now, to my mind, and it's something we've touched on this show and other shows as well, but naively, I kind of thought that bullying kind of stopped around about the time you were 14. Maybe you're a bit fat, a bit spotty, a bit short. That was me. I was a bit short. And maybe you got a bit of grief off your mates, or, people that weren't necessarily your mates. But, as far as I was concerned, I was never bullied. I have to be honest, I was never bullied, and I didn't do any bullying. I was too small to do bullying myself. But as far as I was concerned, bullying kind of began and ended at the school gates. No. How many of you have experienced it? How many of you have witnessed it? Bet it's quite a few. Mick says, he says, when I get it, I've seen so many stupid things done over the years. Problem being, people don't question what they're asked to do. Too many don't want to upset those higher on the ladder. Yeah, we'll be talking about that ladder in just a moment, funnily enough. Ignored warnings. 500 PFDs issued annually across England and Wales. Nearly 40% receive no or partial responses. Rather than sending out missives on how to handle contaminated wood, would we not be better off sending out missives on how to not die? Would that not be a step in the right direction? Peter says, driver deaths. HGV drivers continue to be killed at work through rollaways, falls, reversing collisions, poor load handling, and inadequate medical checks. That's in his industry. I wonder how many are suffering the same thing in construction. The evidence suggests somewhere between 35 and 50 per year are dying as a result of various shortcomings, failings, and stuff. And the last person to realise is bullying is the bully. Is that right? Never thought about it. They call it something like incentivizing or active management. Yeah. And one that really stands out for me, and I won't name names, but I remember being on a site where I'd gone to interview somebody else, but there was an apprentice. I think he was about 3 days into his job. And the way that he was treated, I mean, literally harangued. I think at one point he was actually clipped across the back of the head. He was wearing a hard hat. It won't have done him any physical damage, but mentally, he was probably 17 years old. He's going home to his mum. How was your day? It was all right. When somebody slapped him across the back of the head. Yeah. Chris Ford says, Mick, the accident must have happened 25 years ago when having buckets, etc., in the bucket was standard practice. We had a mishap over 20 years ago, and now where a finger got caught in a lifting chain. Ouch. Yes, bullies don't realise that they are actually bullying. I bet some of them do. Yes, I promised you we were going off to Florida because Ken likes Florida and we're here to serve. So here we go.
My name is Parker Ferris, owner and operator of Farmore Construction. Farmore Construction, we're a family-owned and operated marine construction company out here in Pinellas County. We build docks and seawalls all up and down the coast. Today we're out here in Gulfport, Florida, working on a seawall project from some damage from Hurricane Helene. We're building a seawall, putting in vinyl seawall panels all the way down here, thanks to our Takeuchi 290. After talking to Mike over at Alta, he really sold me on it, that it was one of the best machines out there. It was perfect for our application. It was the right size for the barge that we have. Really like the style of the design of it. It does everything we need for us. My favorite part of it is just how powerful it is. It can pretty much move anything and everything that we need it to with ease. My experience with the hurricane, I was over at my house, not expecting anything near the damage that we received out here. It was extremely substantial with the docks, the seawalls. It just tore apart everything. We're still in the process of rebuilding. We will be rebuilding for the next years to come. We have a great relationship with Alta. We bought our second machine from just a few weeks ago, our 216. Another great machine. We love it. It's a great machine for us getting in the backyards, and it's great for fitting through gates in a lot of tight spots. We look forward to using our Takeuchi equipment on all of our projects coming up. It's the toughest equipment out there. It does everything we need to do. We are extremely pleased with it, and we couldn't ask for any better equipment.
Lovely part of the world to be doing your piling in. Jim Turner says, a fellow I worked with was called Mickey Two Toes, lost 3 toes when a crane grabbed his foot. His fault. Mickey Two Toes. Sounds like a character out of a Guy Ritchie movie, doesn't he? Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels featuring Mickey Two Toes. We're going to be back in just a moment with our final film of the day, which features Gehl. Don't feature them very often. Will in a second. Yeah, thanks to our connections with the fine folks at Manitou, we got to work with Gehl at the last Balmer. Obviously, Gehl is part of the Manitou family. This is one of their latest skid steers. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Nathan Ryan, Global Product Manager with Manitou Group, sponsoring the Manitou and Gehl brands. The model we'll focus on right now is our V275. It's the largest in the medium frame family. It features a one-piece pod cab design that keeps all dust, heat, and noise out of the cab. It's also got market-leading fuel capacity Has a wheel loader with 28 gallons of fuel, allows you to work all day and still have fuel in reserve. And the track loader version of the VT275 offers 38 gallons of fuel. The machine also features class-leading ground speed of 10.9 miles per hour. It's a vertical lift model, as you can see, very productive and best for dumping into high trucks or trailers. The machine shown here behind me features our large 14 tires. It is also available with a smaller set of tires. The new model shown here features our patented fold-up door, which allows operators to operate with the door open or closed. It also allows the door to be open with the lift arm in any position. These new models are some of the most serviceable machines on the market, with cabs that tip up 62 degrees, a cooler in the back that rotates up 28 degrees, a rear door, and 3 panels on the underside of the machine. There's no part of this machine that your mechanic can't access. Additionally, all of the lights on the machine are LED, providing a bright illuminated work area while you're operating in dark conditions. With these new loaders, we really tried to focus on reducing the time it takes to service your machines. As you all know, greasing your machine is a daily maintenance operation. It's always been a difficult challenge to try and find zerks when they're buried on hubs or cylinders under the lift arm. So with our new machines, we've made all of our pins greasable. So your daily maintenance just consists of walking along the side of the machine and greasing 9 to 10 grease zerks. It's very quick and easy and should cut your daily maintenance time in half. Inside the cab on these new models, you'll find pilot-operated joysticks, providing the user with a true 1-to-1 ratio for control versus what the machine will actually do. Also in the cab, you'll find a 7-inch color display with built-in rear view camera, heated cloth seats with air suspension, and large footwell in the bottom with an electronic foot throttle, which is also a decelerator pedal when you turn the hand throttle up to full speed. If you look, these machines have taken a step out of the past and are now a more modern design. So you'll notice on the top of the lift arm, we have a patent pending design where the lift arm slopes down and away from the machine. This is done so that material will not build up on the lift arm. Material will slide right off the lift arm. So if you want to learn more about these loaders, I would encourage you to visit Gehl.com or make a trip to your local Gehl dealer.
Gehl works like you.
Yeah, I've seen those up close. Pretty damn good they are, I would have to say. Very quickly, Andy Thornton says, bullying tends to be a learned habit, i.e. they went through it themselves, or it's a way of covering their imposter syndrome. Oh, imposter syndrome. Yes. Rife it is in my part of the world. Not with me. Not with me. Too much of an egotist to have imposter syndrome. Dan saying, nice and handy machine. And Mick says, how's this for telling? Thank you for this, Mick. Did you know it takes 6 months to 2 years on average to solve most murders in the UK? Yet it's nearly 10 years since the Didcot 4 lost their lives, and the HSE and Thames Valley Police are still scratching their bloody asses. Yeah. What is the difference? What is the difference between an actual murder and 4 deaths in a single incident? What is the difference? Anyway, that's about it for the main part of this morning's show. I think I will end up doing a show on the subject of death. I'll tell you about that. I'm going to go back to this with Jim, rather. The old fellow knew a fair few deaths and accidents. He was on a job when a fellow called Fitzy backed over the high wall in a 777 dump truck. Yeah, there's been a few of those over the years. Yes, as I was saying, that's about it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be right back after this. Permit me, if you will, to take you through my process. I have an idea, whether it's for an article, a video, an audio podcast, or a new segment for this very daily live stream. I think about it for a bit, and then, assuming I'm happy with the idea, and if I think my readers, viewers, followers, and subscribers will like it too, I do it. There are no strategy meetings or working parties. There's no research and development or focus groups. As a result, there's no friction. I can go from inception to implementation in a matter of minutes. Now, admittedly, not all of my ideas stick. Some of my ideas that appear to have legs subsequently turn out to be lame. Some ideas I expect to take flight actually crash and burn. But I trust my instincts, and if I'm going to fail, I'd rather fail fast and move on. That's one of the very few joys of being a one-man band. The only person I need to explain my mistakes to is myself. Now, I'll get into how my no-friction approach differs from that of the demolition and construction industry and the bodies and organisations that serve it in just a moment. But before I do so, I'd like to tell you a very quick story that illustrates that friction in action. As you're all aware, in the next few weeks, I will be hosting the 1000th episode of this daily live stream, The Breakfast Show. It's a significant milestone, both for me and for the audience that tunes in on a regular basis. So I thought I'd reach out to some of my friends and contacts in the construction equipment sphere to see if they'd be kind enough to provide me with some branded prizes to give away on that 1000th show. I dropped an email to JCB, and within a matter of minutes, I received a response that said they'd be glad to help and just wanted me to confirm my address. I then reached out to another unnamed equipment manufacturer. They too said they were happy to help. However, they were concerned at their ability to get some prizes to me within the allotted 3-week time frame. Apparently, my request would need to go from my contact to his assistant, who would then send an email to the person in charge of merchandise, who would likely pass on that request to their assistant, who would then inform the dispatch department, and you get the idea. As it stands at the moment, I'm still not entirely sure whether that box of goodies will arrive ever or on time, because each additional person and each additional step adds friction. Each person in the chain adds a potential weakness, and each new layer is a crack through which efficiency might fall. I'll look at the issue and how it applies to in the wider demolition and construction context in a moment. But first, allow me to ponder the designed by committee process as it applies to a trade organisation like the NFDC, National Federation of Demolition Contractors. Someone has an idea that might be of genuine benefit to the NFDC, to its members, or even to the entire demolition industry here in the UK and around the world. They present that idea at a regional meeting. The feedback is mostly positive and supportive, but someone suggests a small tweak to the idea. Someone else suggests revising it, how it's worded, and someone else insists that the idea is passed up the line for further consultation at national level. Now, the Federation's National Council isn't scheduled to meet for another 2 months, but that tweaked idea is placed on the agenda to be discussed again. That subsequent discussion requires further revisions before the original idea can be implemented. 3 months later, the idea is presented again with the tweaks and the amendments in place, at which point someone says, I actually preferred how it was first presented. I actually preferred how it's final time. I actually preferred how it was first presented. And back to committee it goes. Assuming that he or she still has the will to do so, the poor soul that came up with that idea might still be trying to get it past the powers that be a year from now. A potentially industry-changing idea dashed on the rocks of inefficiency thanks to a committee. Now let's take things up a notch and apply it to the actual demolition and construction industry itself. Think of a large-scale project, the demolition of a tower block, for example, and its replacement with a new one. A client or a local authority puts the initial demolition and the new construction out to tender. The client has a vague notion of budget price, but they don't really have any real preference on how the demolition is actually done. They receive the tender applications, and often from a position of ignorance, they must now choose between one company proposing explosive demolition, another proposing a top-down demolition, and a third suggesting a high-reach demolition approach. In addition to the 3 different methods on the table, there are 3 wildly differing prices to weigh up too. Even assuming the client selects the right method and the right price, their problems are just beginning. The construction industry has more layers than an onion. While in some walks of life it pays to be a jack of all trades, in construction, everyone is a master of none. Everyone is a master of one. There are piling contractors, steel erectors, scaffolders, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, welders, painters, finishers, roofers, facade specialists, and fit-out contractors, and we're only just getting started. Now think about all the disciplines within each of those specialist contractors. Think about earthworks, for example. You might have a project manager, a site supervisor, handful of equipment operators, a traffic marshal, and maybe a smattering of operatives and apprentices as well. From the bottom up, each one of those reports to someone above them on the project ladder. The person at the top of that ladder reports to someone above them, who reports to someone above them, who ultimately might report to a project management company, who will then report to the client, who will then report to any other stakeholders that are involved. Layer upon layer upon layer, cost upon cost, friction upon friction, inefficiency heaped upon efficiency. So many potential cracks. It really is a wonder that anything ever actually gets done. Finally, think about how many onion layers there might be on a project of the scale of HS2, for example. From the joint venture tier ones at the top of the top, from the joint venture tier ones at the top to the tiny little 1 and 2 man band operations at the bottom. That's not an organizational ladder. It's a chaotic jumble, a massive game of pickup sticks in which efficiency leaks through every single gap. And we wonder why projects overrun on both time and budget. There you are. Designed by committee, that's called. And if anybody is aware, I mean, you'll see this on LinkedIn at some point, or over on YouTube, or on Demolition News. You will know that there is a suggestion that a camel is a horse designed by committee. The more you look at a camel, the more you realise there may be some truth in that. Let's head on over to the chat, see what's being said over there. There you wasn't just me that thought it. Definition of a camel: a horse designed by committee. Yeah. Just all joking aside, I was doing that vaguely tongue in cheek, but all of that aside, do you think about the number of processes and gaps and everything else in a project of the scale of HS2? From that tier one to the it's a joint venture, so immediately you've got a bit of friction between the various joint venture stakeholders. You've also got the client who will be involved. You've got the environment agency, health and safety executive. You've got whichever rail organization is behind it. You've got the government. But then below that, you've got all of those multiple disciplines. And yes, in an ideal world, it would be nice to think that we're all heading in the same direction, basically from Euston or thereabouts up to Birmingham. But construction and demolition is like herding cats. And all of these people are going off in different directions. Now, good morning. This I believe is the company that is currently finds itself under the stalker spotlight. This is Dr. On-Track Training Services. Guys, you are the people that are doing the dozer training, are you not? I just want to check. I tell you what, while I'm here, let's have a look, see if I can find you over there, just to make sure that we are talking about the very right people. That's not what I'm looking for. And yes, apparently it is them. I've already done this, but thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. And while I'm here, thank you for raising standards in the industry. So, listen, I am often critical of all things related to training, but actual hands-on physical training to operate a dozer, I'm all for it. So, to be clear, if you would like to drop your website in the chat, feel free. If you'd like to send me your telephone number so that people can get in touch. If anyone wants dozer training, there's your peeps right there in the chat. Okay, On-Track Training Service. The reason that I wanted to speak to you, and I'm very, very glad you're here, by all accounts, you have encountered a Mr. Simpson. Have nothing to do with him. First of all, take no notice of him because he's quite clearly a madman. Block him everywhere. Do not engage with him because Trust me, having been there, having had to go through 2 separate court cases to get an injunction against him, he is, as my dad used to say, he is heap bad medicine. Don't engage with him. Bad news, a bad actor, bad for the industry, whereas what you guys are doing is unquestionably good for the industry. So, assuming this is Chris that I'm speaking to, it is apparently. Dan says, "Welcome, Chris." Jim rather says, "Good morning, Chris," as well. Good morning, Chris. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing for the industry. If you would like to take me up on my offer of a bit of free advertising, let's have a chat afterwards. You can find me on LinkedIn, which you may well have already done. But keep up the good work and take no notice of that pillock, for that is what he is, a pillock, a pain in the arse, and a thorn in the side of people that are trying to do a good thing in this industry. Yes, design by committee. That was what we were talking about before I was quite sensibly interrupted. Design by committee. You think about all of those layers, and even when you think about Chinese whispers. I'm sure you all played Chinese whispers as a child. You know, you all pass on a message. If somebody at head office within a ground worker, for example, says, "We are going to do this," and then that is passed to maybe their assistant, who then passes it to the project manager, who passes it to the site supervisor, who passes it to the operatives, who pass. You get the idea. So there's 5, 6, 7, maybe more steps. The message that is received by the operator, the operative, the apprentice, what are the chances that that message that is received there is as it was originally dictated there? Or has it been filtered and altered and tweaked and modified? Now, blow that up and include all of those disciplines that I mentioned in that monologue. Dozens and dozens and dozens. It really is. It really does blow my mind that anything at all gets done. Mick, excuse me, sir. Just to make a point, I had to talk to the local mayor regarding the road outside my gate. Anyway, I proposed I would pay what I needed. The mayor passed it up the ladder. This ended up at government level. Soon as they saw I was paying for it, it was passed. 3 days that took. Makes you wonder. Yes, I wonder how long that might have taken if you weren't paying for it. I reckon you'd still be waiting. I do reckon you'd still be waiting. I am going to go back very, very quickly because it is something that I want to. It's not strictly true. I don't want to do it, but I do think it needs doing. I'll look at the diary. I reckon a couple of weeks' time we should do a Wednesday night on our Let's Talk About Death. I can promise you it will not be a cheery one. There will be no videos. There'll be no razzmatazz because I don't think that's appropriate. And I do think we should include some of the ones that we are aware of. May not name names because I don't think that's particularly respectful to the families of the people that have lost their lives or possibly been maimed or injured. But I do think it's a discussion worth having. I'll keep you posted. I'll check the diary immediately after the show. And our friends at is that Doctori or Doctore On Track Training Services? Says morning, Dan. Imagine, just for a second, try and put yourself in their shoes. There's a company there trying to raise the standards of the industry. They are trying to help plug the skills gap. We don't have enough dozer operators. They're doing something about it. And somebody is criticizing them for it. Go back to what we said. What was it? Trying to find it. It was an Andy Thornton comment. Yeah, I wonder if there's a bit of that. Was our friend bullied himself? Does he have a bit of imposter syndrome? Bearing in mind his rampant ego, I do not believe that is likely to be the case, but maybe it is. Why would you lash out at a company that is trying to make things better, possibly giving somebody a new career? Why would you do that? What kind of a bumhole do you need to be to do that? And apparently, yes, it is pronounced Doctore from the gladiator days. Okay, I'm unaware of that, but Doctore it is. Fine. Yeah, okay. I hope we're all still here. Yes. As I say, I'll let you know. I'll probably tell you tomorrow when we're going to do the Let's Talk About Death show. Let's have a chat. And Andy, I don't know if that's something you fancy being involved in. I know we've not actually spoken face to face, but if you fancy being on that show, possibly as a co-host to lend your expertise, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's just throw it open and try and do it before the 10th. I will indeed try and do it before the 10th. And Andy Thornton has just given me a thumbs up. Let's make it happen, people. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. Don't let people undermine what you're doing, particularly if they have the surname Simpson. Don't let that happen. Keep up the good work. Jim Turner says it's already like Chinese whispers. Problems on the site get sold to site manager. They email tech department asks architect. Someone comes out. They fail to speak to us on site. Yeah. I mean, and I've kind of looked at it from the top down. What about from the bottom up? What about if you've got an issue? Never mind an idea. Let's say you've got an issue. I don't know what that issue might be. Maybe you're aware of drug and alcohol abuse on site. Maybe you've spotted a bit of bullying, for example. Maybe you're concerned about one of your colleagues who won't open up. And you pass that up the line. By the time it's left you, gone to your direct superior, who has then passed it up. For one thing, does that message make it to head office? If it does make it to head office, is the message the same as the one that you initially delivered? Is anyone doing anything about it? Let's have a chat. Mick says, stay safe, gents. Me and the Hound are off to have a pub lunch. Well, what a fine example. What a fine day that will be. Two of my, pub lunches. Don't particularly like pubs because I don't drink, but pub lunches, yes. Dogs, yes. Count me in. Then solve the problem in the worst, most expensive way, and all that took a month, where we could have solved the problem at site level within a day. Yeah. I hear that a lot. Anyway, people, go and have a fine and splendid day. I'll be back tomorrow for yet more of the same. I don't know what we're going to be talking about. I could bore you for hours on stalkers if you fancy. I don't think I'll do that. I don't want to give him the oxygen of publicity. So yes, I'll come up with something to talk about tomorrow. Till then, everybody, have a fine day. I'll see you all on the morrow. Dan says this on a daily basis. You missed my comment. Dan, literally hundreds of comments. Don't know. If it's important, drop it in the WhatsApp group. And Doctore on track training services says definitely up for a chat. Go and find me over on LinkedIn. Let's have a natter. See what we can do together. Because I like what you're doing and I think it needs to be encouraged. See you tomorrow, everybody. Have a good day.